The city of Orion 9 never truly slept. Bright flying cars crossed the dark sky every minute. Giant hologram signs covered the tall buildings, and robots walked beside humans and aliens without stopping. Thousands of people hurried to their jobs every day, but almost nobody looked at the faces around them. Everyone cared only about their own life. In such a busy city, kindness had slowly become something very rare. Ethan worked as a simple cleaner inside the biggest space station in the city. Every morning before the first ships arrived, he cleaned long metal halls, polished giant windows, and picked up trash that rich travelers left behind. The work was hard, and the pay was small, but Ethan never complained. He believed that honest work was better than easy money. Even after losing almost everything years ago, he still tried to stay kind. That evening, Ethan finished another long shift. His back hurt and his hands were tired after cleaning for more than 12 hours. Before leaving, he opened his old lunchbox. Inside was half of a sandwich, a few vegetable slices, and a small piece of cooked chicken. He smiled softly. It was not much, but it was enough for dinner. He carefully closed the box and started walking toward the train station. The streets were crowded as always. Rich merchants laughed while carrying expensive shopping bags. Soldiers in black armor stood on every corner with glowing weapons in their hands. Delivery drones flew above everyone's heads. Loud advertisements filled the air with happy voices. But Ethan noticed something very different. Near a broken food machine, 4 small alien children were sitting together. They looked weak, cold, and very hungry. The children wore old gray clothes that were torn in many places. Their small hands were dirty and their faces showed clear signs of hunger. The youngest girl hugged her stomach while trying not to cry. A little boy quietly watched people passing by, hoping someone would stop. Hundreds of humans and aliens walked past them, but nobody even slowed down. Some looked away. Others acted as if the children did not exist. Ethan slowed his steps. His heart became heavy as he watched them. He knew that life in Orion 9 was difficult, but seeing children suffer always reminded him of painful memories from his own past. He took one more step, then stopped completely. For a few seconds, he simply looked at them without saying a word. The oldest child finally gathered enough courage to stand. He was very thin, and his voice shook as he spoke. "Sir, do you have any leftover food? We are not asking for money, just the food you don't need." His words were quiet, but they carried a sadness that Ethan could not ignore. Ethan looked at his lunchbox. It was the only food he had until tomorrow morning. If he gave it away, he would sleep hungry. He closed his eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and then smiled gently. Without saying anything, he walked toward the children and held out the lunchbox. The 4 children stared at the food with wide eyes. None of them reached for it immediately. They looked surprised, almost as if they had forgotten what kindness looked like. Slowly, the youngest girl accepted the box with both hands. Her fingers were shaking. "Thank you," she whispered so softly that Ethan almost could not hear her. As the little girl lifted her head, Ethan finally looked into her eyes. His entire body froze. Her eyes were bright blue. Not normal blue. They glowed with a strange light that seemed almost alive. Ethan's breathing stopped for a second. The other 3 children slowly looked up as well. All 4 of them had the same glowing blue eyes. A forgotten memory suddenly returned to Ethan's mind. Years ago, an old space captain had once warned him, "If you ever meet children with glowing blue eyes, run before someone else finds them." Before Ethan could ask a single question, loud warning sirens echoed across the city. Then several black military ships appeared above the streets. Their searchlights locked onto the 4 hungry children. The loud sirens echoed through every street of Orion 9. People who had been walking only seconds earlier suddenly moved aside in fear. Shop owners quickly closed their doors, flying cars changed direction, and the crowded street became strangely quiet. Everyone knew those sirens meant only one thing. The Galactic Security Force had arrived, and they never came without a reason. Ethan looked up as 3 large black military ships slowly floated above the street. Their powerful searchlights swept across the buildings before stopping on the 4 hungry alien children. The bright white beams covered the children from head to toe. They stood frozen, holding the small lunchbox tightly. Fear filled their young faces, but none of them tried to run. Heavy transport doors opened beneath the ships. One after another, armored soldiers dropped onto the street with surprising speed. Their black armor covered every part of their bodies, and glowing blue rifles pointed directly toward the children. The soldiers moved with perfect discipline, forming a circle that blocked every possible escape. The people nearby stepped back even farther, refusing to get involved. The oldest alien boy quietly moved in front of the three younger children. His body was small, but he stood like a shield. His hands were shaking, yet he refused to step aside. The little girl still held Ethan's lunchbox against her chest, as if it were the most valuable thing she had ever received. Ethan noticed that she was more afraid of the soldiers than of being hungry. One officer slowly walked forward. A silver badge shined on his chest, showing that he was the commander. His voice was cold and without emotion. "Stand away from those children immediately," he ordered Ethan. "This operation does not concern civilians." Ethan looked from the officer to the frightened children. They were not carrying weapons, they had not attacked anyone. Only a few moments ago they had simply asked for leftover food. He could not understand why trained soldiers had surrounded 4 hungry children as if they were dangerous criminals. "What have they done?" Ethan asked calmly. The commander did not answer the question. Instead, he repeated the order in a louder voice. "Step away now. Anyone who interferes with galactic security will be arrested." The people watching from a distance lowered their heads. Some quietly whispered to each other, but nobody spoke loudly enough for the soldiers to hear. In Orion 9, questioning the military was considered foolish. Most people simply obeyed and stayed alive. Ethan remained where he was. He was not a hero. He was only a cleaner who earned enough money to survive. But something inside him refused to walk away. The fear in the children's eyes reminded him too much of someone he had once failed to protect. That old pain still lived deep inside his heart. The youngest boy slowly looked up at Ethan. His glowing blue eyes were filled with silent tears. In a weak voice he whispered, "Please, don't let them take my sisters." Those simple words struck Ethan harder than any weapon could. The commander lifted one hand, and 2 soldiers immediately stepped forward with metal restraint cuffs. They reached toward the oldest child without hesitation. Before either soldier could touch him, the little girl suddenly cried out in fear. At that exact moment, something impossible happened. A soft blue light spread from her glowing eyes. The light surrounded the 4 children like a gentle wave. Dust rose from the ground. Empty food containers floated into the air, and even the soldiers took one surprised step backward. The strange energy lasted only a few seconds before disappearing as quickly as it had appeared. Complete silence covered the street. Every soldier stared at the children. The commander's face changed for the first time. He was no longer angry. He looked terrified. Very slowly, he touched the communication device on his helmet and spoke only 6 words. "Confirm visual contact. Blue-eyed subjects identified." A few seconds later, a deep voice answered through the radio. "Supreme Command has been notified. Keep them alive. The High Chancellor wants them personally." The street remained silent after the message came through the commander's radio. Even the soldiers who had faced deadly battles across the galaxy looked uneasy. Their rifles stayed pointed at the 4 children, but none of them dared to move closer again. Whatever those glowing blue eyes meant, it was clear that even the Galactic Security Force feared them. Ethan watched the children carefully. The strange blue light had disappeared, and they looked like ordinary hungry kids once more. The youngest girl lowered her head, still holding the small lunchbox against her chest. She looked confused, as if she did not understand what had just happened. The older boy gently placed his arm around his sisters, trying to comfort them, even though fear filled his own face. The commander took a slow step backward instead of forward. His breathing became heavier behind his helmet. He pressed his communication device again, waiting for more orders. After several long seconds, only silence answered him. That silence made the soldiers even more nervous. Suddenly, an old man standing among the crowd quietly whispered, "Blue eyes. I thought they disappeared long ago." Several people nearby immediately looked at him. "Be quiet," another woman whispered nervously. "Do you want the soldiers to hear you?" The old man lowered his voice, but Ethan was close enough to hear every word. "When I was young," the old man said, "my grandfather told me stories about a peaceful alien race called the Luminari. They were known for their glowing blue eyes. They could never lie, never hate, and never start a war. Every planet respected them because they always helped others." Ethan listened carefully. "But then," the old man continued, "one day the entire race vanished. The government said they had been destroyed by a deadly space disease. After that, nobody ever spoke about them again." The woman beside him slowly shook her head. "My father told me a different story," she whispered. "He believed the Luminari were not destroyed by disease. He believed someone hunted them." Before Ethan could hear anything else, one of the soldiers shouted, "Everyone stay silent." The crowd immediately stepped back. The commander walked toward the children once more, but this time his voice sounded different. It was no longer full of confidence. There was caution hidden inside every word. "You four will come with us peacefully," he said. "No one will hurt you if you cooperate." The oldest boy looked directly at the commander. "You said the same thing to our parents," he replied quietly. The commander's body became completely still. For a brief second, nobody moved. Ethan noticed something strange. The commander did not deny the boy's words. Instead, he looked away. That single reaction told Ethan more than any answer could. The children were telling the truth. The little girl slowly reached into the pocket of her old jacket. The nearby soldiers instantly raised their rifles, expecting a weapon. Instead, she pulled out a tiny silver necklace. It was old, scratched, and covered with dust. At its center was a glowing blue crystal. She held it tightly before whispering, "Mama told us never to lose this." The crystal suddenly became brighter. A soft blue light spread across its surface. Without warning, a tiny hologram appeared above the necklace. Everyone on the street stared in complete shock. The image showed a beautiful alien woman with glowing blue eyes. She looked frightened, and her clothes were covered with dust. Behind her, fire and explosions filled the sky. "If anyone is watching this," the woman said, "then our family has already been found." The recording shook as loud explosions echoed behind her. "They told the galaxy we were dangerous," she continued. "That is a lie." Tears slowly rolled down the oldest boy's face. The woman looked directly into the recording device. "Our blue eyes are not a weapon. They are a key. If these children survive, they must never go to the planet called—" The hologram suddenly flickered. Static covered the image. The recording broke apart before she could finish the final sentence. The glowing crystal turned dark. Silence filled the street once again. Every person watching realized the same terrible truth. Someone had erased the rest of the message. Before Ethan could even process what he had seen, every soldier on the street received the same emergency signal at once. The commander looked down at his wrist display. His face lost all color. A new order had arrived. It contained only one sentence. "Change of mission. Eliminate the human witness immediately." The commander's wrist device stopped flashing, but the order remained on the screen. Every soldier around him received the same message at the same time. Their glowing rifles slowly turned away from the 4 alien children and pointed directly at Ethan. The crowd gasped and quickly stepped farther back. Only a few minutes earlier, Ethan had been nothing more than an ordinary cleaner. Now, without understanding why, he had become the most wanted man on the street. Ethan looked around in disbelief. He had broken no law, carried no weapon, and harmed no one. He had simply shared his leftover food with 4 hungry children. Yet the soldiers were staring at him as if he were a dangerous criminal. His heart began to beat faster, but he forced himself to stay calm. The frightened children moved closer behind him, almost as if they believed he was the only person who could keep them safe. The commander slowly raised his hand, signaling every soldier to hold their position. His voice remained cold, but there was something unusual hidden behind it. It almost sounded like regret. "Ethan Carter," he said while reading information from his wrist device. "By direct order of the High Chancellor, you are now classified as a Level 1 threat to galactic security. You are ordered to surrender immediately without resistance." Ethan stared at the commander in complete shock. He had never met the High Chancellor, never entered a government building, and had spent most of his life cleaning space stations. None of this made any sense. "There has to be a mistake," Ethan replied. "I'm just a cleaner. I don't even know who these children are." His voice stayed steady, but inside his mind, hundreds of questions raced through his thoughts. Before the commander could answer, the oldest alien boy stepped forward. His face was pale, but his eyes showed quiet determination. He looked directly at Ethan and spoke in a soft voice that only the people nearby could hear. "This is not your fault," he said. "The moment you shared your food with us, the scanners marked your life forever. They believe you are now one of us." The crowd looked at the children with growing fear. Some people whispered that the glowing blue eyes carried a strange disease. Others believed the children possessed forbidden powers that could destroy planets. Rumors spread quickly through Orion 9, and fear always moved faster than truth. Ethan realized that most people had already judged the children without knowing anything about them. The youngest girl suddenly grabbed Ethan's hand with both of hers. Her small fingers were cold and shaking. She looked up at him with tears filling her glowing blue eyes. "Please don't leave us," she whispered. "Everyone who tried to help us disappeared. We don't want another good person to die because of us." Her words were simple, but they carried pain far beyond her young age. For several long seconds, Ethan said nothing. He looked into the faces of the 4 children and saw fear, hunger, and loneliness. Then he looked at the soldiers, standing in perfect formation with powerful weapons aimed at innocent lives. Deep inside his heart, he already knew what the right choice was. It would cost him everything, but he could not walk away and pretend he had seen nothing. Ethan slowly stepped forward until he stood directly between the children and the soldiers. His hands remained empty, and his voice stayed calm. "If you want them," he said, "you will have to go through me first." The words echoed across the silent street. Even the commander seemed surprised that an ordinary cleaner would stand against the entire galactic security force without carrying a single weapon. The commander closed his eyes for a brief moment before speaking again. "You do not understand what you are protecting," he said quietly. "Those children are connected to something the galaxy buried many years ago. If they remain alive, everything we built could fall apart." Ethan listened carefully, but instead of answering, he simply shook his head. "Then tell me the truth," he replied. "Because all I have seen today are hungry children asking for food." Before anyone could speak again, a loud explosion shook the street. A nearby government drone suddenly burst into flames and crashed onto the road. Thick smoke filled the air as alarms echoed across the city once more. Every soldier looked toward the burning wreckage, confused by the unexpected attack. The commander quickly shouted new orders, but the communication system filled with loud static instead of clear voices. Through the rising smoke, a tall figure wearing a dark gray cloak slowly appeared. His face remained hidden beneath a deep hood, and he carried no visible weapon. Yet every soldier immediately stepped backward the moment they saw him. The mysterious stranger stopped only a few meters away from Ethan and the children. Then, in a calm voice filled with certainty, he spoke words that froze everyone on the street. "Take the children and run," the stranger said. "The galaxy has been lying to all of you for the last 20 years, and tonight, the truth is finally coming back." The thick black smoke continued to rise from the burning government drone, covering the street like a dark cloud. Soldiers tightened their formation, but their eyes were no longer focused only on the 4 alien children. Every rifle slowly turned toward the mysterious man wearing the gray cloak. Even the commander, who had remained calm until now, looked deeply unsettled. It was clear that this stranger was far more dangerous than anyone standing beside Ethan. Ethan studied the mysterious figure carefully. The man stood perfectly still, showing no fear even though dozens of powerful weapons were pointed at him. His face remained hidden beneath the hood, and his hands stayed empty at his sides. There was something strange about the way he carried himself. He looked like someone who had already planned every second of what was about to happen. The children, however, reacted very differently. The moment they saw him, hope returned to their frightened faces. The oldest alien boy took one small step forward before stopping himself. His voice was quiet, but it carried both surprise and relief. "You came," he whispered. The man gave only a small nod without taking his eyes off the soldiers. "I promised your mother that I would find you," he answered calmly. "I was late, but I am here now. That promise is not broken." Hearing those words, the youngest girl held the silver necklace tightly against her chest, and fresh tears filled her glowing blue eyes. The commander slowly removed his helmet, revealing a tired face marked by old battle scars. He looked directly at the stranger with a mixture of anger and fear. "I thought you were dead," he said in a low voice. The man finally lifted his head slightly, though his face was still hidden by the shadow of the hood. "Many people believe that," he replied. "It was easier for the government if the galaxy thought I had disappeared forever." Ethan felt more confused with every passing minute. Only 1 hour earlier he had been walking home after work with a simple lunchbox in his hand. Now he was standing in the middle of a secret conflict that seemed to have started many years ago. He looked at the stranger and asked the question that had been growing inside his mind. "Who are you?" he said. "And why does everyone seem afraid of you?" The stranger turned toward Ethan for the first time. Although his face remained hidden, his voice became softer. "My name is Kale," he answered. "Long before you became a cleaner on Orion 9, I served as the chief guardian of the Luminari people. I protected families with blue eyes before the government declared them enemies of the galaxy. When the attacks began, I failed to save many of them. These 4 children are among the last survivors." Ethan listened in complete silence, realizing that every answer only created even bigger questions. Kale then looked at Ethan with surprising kindness. "You think we met only today," he continued, "but that is not true." Ethan frowned in confusion. He searched his memory, yet he could not remember seeing this man before. Kyle slowly reached inside his cloak and removed a small metal badge. It was old, scratched, and covered with dust, but Ethan recognized it immediately. It had belonged to his father, who had disappeared during a mysterious space mission almost 20 years earlier. Ethan's hands began to shake as he accepted the badge. There was no doubt about it. His father had carried this exact symbol every day before he vanished. Ethan looked up with disbelief written across his face. "Where did you get this?" he asked. Kale answered without hesitation. "Your father gave it to me on the day he saved my life. He was one of the few humans who discovered the truth. He refused to betray innocent families, even when powerful leaders ordered him to do so." The world around Ethan suddenly felt much heavier. For years he had believed that his father died in a simple accident somewhere beyond the outer colonies. No official report had ever explained what really happened. Now, for the first time, someone was telling a completely different story. Ethan realized that his father had not disappeared by chance. He had become part of the same secret that now surrounded the 4 alien children. Before Ethan could ask another question, loud explosions echoed from the far end of the street. More military ships appeared above the city, and this time they were much larger than the first group. Their engines shook the buildings, and red warning lights flashed across every rooftop. The commander looked toward the sky and quietly whispered, "No, they sent the Shadow Fleet." Even the experienced soldiers around him seemed frightened by those words. Kale's expression became serious. He stepped closer to Ethan and placed a small crystal device into his hand. "There is no more time," he said firmly. "Your father died protecting the truth. Now the same choice belongs to you. This device contains everything the galaxy has been hiding for 20 years. But if the Shadow Fleet captures it, hope will disappear forever." Before Ethan could answer, the lead battleship opened its massive front doors. A tall figure dressed in pure white armor slowly stepped onto the landing platform. The soldiers immediately lowered their heads in respect, while the commander took one nervous step backward. Then Kale looked at the white-armored figure and quietly said, "The High Chancellor has finally come, and he knows exactly who Ethan really is.